Hi, my name is Kathy Gomber, and I'm a phoneaholic. I check my phone the way a kid checks the refrigerator. I check my social media, I check my email, I check the news, I check my texts. Then there's the group chats. Let's see, I check my college friends group chat, my neighborhood group chat, my mom friends group chat, my family group chat, my work friends group chat. So many group chats. I know this isn't good. Over the years, I've even taken measures to try to get this behavior under control. So let's see. Turn off notifications, check. Leave phone downstairs overnight, check. No phones at the dinner table, obviously, check. The upshot, my phone is kicking my butt. Now, I don't know, but I suspect that you may have a similar issue as well. The statistics are everywhere, and they're alarming. The average adult spends 5.9 hours per day on their devices, with well over 3 of those hours on their phones. The statistics for teens are worse, like a lot worse. The average teen spends 9.5 hours per day on their devices. 3 hours and 17 minutes of that time is spent on social media. Quickly behind that is streaming videos on YouTube and Netflix. Statistics also point to the fact that we are sensing that things are getting out of control. The graph behind me shows search data, internet search data, that tracks every time we do a search about phone addiction. So for example, anytime someone types into the computer, am I addicted to my phone? Or is it weird and lame that I watch cat videos 3 hours a day? These searches are tracked. You can see that in 2004, we were feeling pretty good about our devices and we weren't really worried about this. But over time, around 2018, looks like we sort of had a national freak out. We started out loving our devices, but a growing sense of unease and worry about how much they control us started to creep in. And instinctively, we know this is true. Talk to parents at the sidelines of a game, at the grocery store, at school pickup, and this is really the topic. We know that this isn't good. We know that constant phone use leads to a soaring spike in anxiety, especially among our younger kids. We know that just having our phone nearby, even if it's turned off, leads to a dramatic drop in focus. Loss of focus leads to poor grades and poor work performance, which leads to anxiety, which leads us back into that loop again. We know that phones contribute to a sense of narcissism, kind of releasing our inner Kardashian. We know that scrolling through our media feed, constantly getting updates on social events that maybe we weren't invited to, but our friends were, can lead to a crushing sense of loneliness, depression, and sadness. We know that constant phone use can also tinker with our sleep, and that sleep, getting a good night's sleep, really underpins everything we do in a given day. And we know that constant phone use is contributing to the obesity epidemic, that most of what we do on a phone is done while sitting, and that we're not going to get a handle on the obesity or health problems epidemic until we get a handle on the screen epidemic. Put another way, it could be that Netflix is the new smoking. So we know that this is a problem. We know. We don't need more data. We don't need more research. We have enough that we know that this is a problem. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? I turned this question recently on myself and asked, what am I going to do about it? So I did what I always do whenever I have a problem that I want to get to the bottom of. I go to the bookstore. I look for the perfect book written by the perfect guru that's going to help me solve my problems once and for all. So as I was meandering around, I came upon the book Digital Minimalism. The title at once sort of intrigued, challenged, and honestly terrified me. I didn't know exactly what a digital minimalist was, but I was pretty sure that I did not qualify. I was also a little intimidated by the author. Cal Newport, you may have heard of him. He wrote the book Deep Work. He's a super smart, like, computer science guy, author, professor at Georgetown. Kind of one of those guys who's not going to pat you on the head. You feel like he's kind of onto you. But I dove in anyway, sort of ready to receive whatever truth bomb Cal was going to drop my way. What I quickly realized is Cal Newport is sort of to our technology problems what Marie Kondo is to our tidying and organizational problems. Those of you, just to refresh your memory, Marie Kondo is our friendly gal who sort of gets us organized, kind of walks us through the process of cleaning our rooms once and for all by asking that question, does it spark joy? Ironically, she first wrote a book about the subject, but I'm thinking her publicist must have told her that everyone's watching Netflix, so she turned it into a Netflix reality series, and then she was like rocketed to stardom. She's on Colbert, she's cleaning Colbert's desk, and the question, does it spark joy, sort of entered the pop culture lexicon. But what I really appreciated about Marie Kondo is she didn't just sort of yell at us, shame us, and put us into a national timeout about our organizational woes. She really walked us through a deliberate, methodical, step-by-step process of how to do it once and for all. It sort of begins with this shock and awe purge, and then she walked through how to keep the momentum going forward so you can continue it. Cal Newport does the same thing, but he does it with our digital life. So yes, it begins with a shock and awe 30-day digital detox. It's a little scary. So what he has you do, and had me do, is you have to at once get rid of any technology that does not directly contribute to your work or personal life. So any optional technology for 30 days, it is gone. So for most people, that means all social media, all extraneous news, all games, all of that is gone. The idea is to get your phone into a completely uncheckable state. Even email is gone from your phone, and what you do is you batch check it at certain predetermined times of the day for predetermined lengths. Texts as well, batch checked certain times of the day. So I have to say, at first, this was a jarring but effective approach. I found that I would instinctively pick up my phone only to realize that the only thing left to check was the weather. Was I missing out on updates, Facebook updates of my friends' summer whereabouts? Sure. But what I quickly realized that for me, what would start out as an innocent email check would sort of careen off into a 45-minute, God knows what, internet adventure from which I had to extract myself, usually by one of my kids saying, "Mom, what's for dinner?" While this was sort of a sobering approach, it was important for me to kind of get the truth and get a handle on how I spend my time. It was a lot like that iconic scene in one of my favorite movies, A Few Good Men. You sort of want the truth, you kind of can't handle the truth, but ultimately it's good to know the truth and to deal with it. It was good for me to really get a handle on how do I actually spend my minutes, my hours, my days, and ultimately my life. So what does Cal recommend after the 30 days? He sort of, again, just like Marie Kondo, has a whole process going forward. The gist of what you do is you sort of clarify your goals and your values and your sort of life goals, and you figure out how technology is used just to support your goals. In essence, you burn your technological life to the ground, and then you rebuild it slowly from scratch. So for example, if one of your goals is to connect with family and friends better, you would use technology to facilitate face-to-face gatherings instead of just liking their stuff on Facebook and adding a comment here or there. So maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I'd like to try that. That sounds intriguing. Could you do it? Sure. Would it be hard? You bet. But if you dug in and dug deep, I know that you can do it. Here's my concern. I actually don't think that the generation sort of below us could do it. I think that those born sort of 1995 and later, the sort of Gen Z folks, I think that they would have a really hard time doing such a thing without adult assistance. I think that even teenagers who have a lot of self-discipline in other areas of their life would have a really hard time getting this behavior under control. School districts have had a history of partnering with parents when an issue reaches a tipping point. Years back, it was determined that the teen sort of drinking and driving situation was so bad, so we implemented the DARE program. And this was met with like a lot of success. Systematic programming was put in place in schools, and these issues were brought to light, and a lot of progress was made. It was determined that, parents shouldn't have to tackle this alone. In a similar way, in 2008, the financial crisis led educators and lawmakers to the conclusion that the issues of credit were so important that we couldn't just let parents go it alone, that we needed to put systematic programming in place in schools to help deal with this problem. We are now at a similar tipping point with the issue of our digital life. Digital minimalism is a concept that now needs to be taught in schools. The issue is just too ingrained in students for parents to be able to go it alone. We're all familiar with the familiar warning when we get on a plane. Adults, put your oxygen masks on first. Only then can you help your children. I think the analogy holds here. I think the adults need to get their behavior under control, and only then can we teach the next generation. So, what would such a class look like? If I were to have my way, first of all, it would be sort of just a pass-fail class. Get the stress of grades kind of off the table. The class would begin where we would just teach all about why this technology is so addictive, what all the latest brain research says. Trust me, it is extensive. Then this would be the most powerful thing. The class would go through the digital detox process together. I think this would lead to some honest and vulnerable conversations, both in the classroom and at home. I think that it would be really, really, really hard for a lot of the students, but that's the point. They would be going through it together under the guidance of a teacher. Then, I think they would together clarify sort of their life, goals and objectives going forward. They would figure out how digital technology would play a part in that. And most important, they would be taught replacement activities. This is key. When adults do this, we often find that we go back to things that we used to do. Kids who were born in 1995 and after, they don't have those things. So we would need to give them replacement activities, teaching them like how to have a conversation, reading for fun, hobbies such as knitting, playing card games, tinkering with a car, following the stock market. But mostly, I think, really just learning to connect. We can't take for granted that they know these things because they were never formally taught them. We have come a long way when it comes to talking about mental health issues. I really appreciate all of the things that school districts across the country have done to address these important topics. We've added mindfulness, meditation to the classroom. I saw recently that the state of Oregon even added mental health, the ability to take mental health days, and have made this a law. This is great. But it's critically important that we direct some of our mental health energies towards the causes of mental health issues and not just the symptoms of mental health issues. The class that I described would go a long way towards that effort. Recently, I had a situation that really underpinned for me why this approach is important. I had the great opportunity to participate in a mission trip to Mexico with 100 high school students. This was a week-long venture where students were forced to deal with challenging worksite conditions, building homes, dealing with desert heat, dealing with third world living conditions, no running water, and yes, no Wi-Fi. In the time leading up to the trip, students were becoming increasingly anxious about the trip, but some of them confided in me that what they were most fearful of wasn't all those other things I mentioned, it was going without their phone for a week. Some of them even considered canceling the trip because they were so afraid and thought they would go crazy without their phones. Towards the end of a trip, a student came up to me and said that going without her phone, she felt, was the best thing that she ever did. She said she was surprised at how easy it was. When I asked her why it was so easy, she said, it was because we all did it together. She then added, I really want to keep this up when I get home, but I don't know how. Those words haunt me because I think she speaks for her entire generation when she says, I don't know how. So I think it's time that we learn how, and it's time that we teach them how. Thank you.